Hallucinogens are some of the most psychologically powerful substances ever discovered. Drugs capable of distorting perception, emotion, memory, sensory processing, and the feeling of reality itself. But despite often being grouped together, not all hallucinogens work the same way, because some mainly alter perception, some disconnect users from reality entirely, and others can create terrifying hallucinations almost indistinguishable from real life. Most fall into three major categories: psychedelics, dissociatives, and deliriants, and each one affects the brain in completely different ways. Psychedelics are drugs like LSD, psilocybin mushrooms, DMT, and mescaline. They mainly act through serotonin signaling, especially the 5-HT2A receptor, dramatically altering perception, emotion, and thought patterns. One of the most famous psychedelics ever created is LSD, lysergic acid diethylamide. LSD doesn't usually create realistic hallucinations like monsters or imaginary people. Instead, reality itself starts feeling rewritten. Walls appear to breathe, patterns flow across surfaces, lights stretch through the air, colors become unnaturally vivid, almost glowing. Music can feel emotionally overwhelming, like sound is physically moving through the body, and time starts breaking apart completely. Minutes can feel endless. Thoughts loop repeatedly. Simple ideas suddenly feel deeply important or deeply terrifying. A good trip can feel euphoric, emotional, and intensely meaningful, but a bad trip can become psychologically overwhelming. Paranoia spirals, negative thoughts loop uncontrollably, and some people become convinced they've permanently damaged their mind or lost touch with reality forever. At higher doses, LSD can produce ego dissolution, a state where a person's sense of identity begins disappearing. Memories stop feeling connected. The boundary between self and everything else can collapse, and the effects can last 8 to 12 hours, sometimes longer. Next are psilocybin mushrooms, often called magic mushrooms. Compared to LSD, mushrooms are often described as more emotional, natural, and introspective. Visual distortions still occur, textures shift, nature can look unbelievably alive. Trees seem to breathe, patterns form across surfaces, colors turn saturated and dreamlike, but mushrooms often affect emotion even more strongly than visuals. People report intense empathy, deep introspection, emotional vulnerability, or childlike wonder. Some laugh uncontrollably. Others spiral into fear, sadness, or panic. Time distortion becomes severe. Minutes stretch endlessly. Thoughts become non-linear, and at high doses. Reality itself can collapse into confusion, emotion, and hallucination. Then there's DMT, often considered one of the most intense psychedelics. Unlike LSD or mushrooms, DMT can act almost immediately. Within seconds, people report being overwhelmed. Reality can disappear entirely. Some describe entering impossible environments filled with shifting geometry, hyper-detailed worlds, and sometimes entities. Many say it feels less like taking a drug and more like temporarily entering another place. Time loses meaning. Some report living what felt like hours or lifetimes, inside experiences lasting only minutes. Despite often lasting under 20 minutes, it can be one of the most psychologically intense experiences a person ever has. Mescaline, found in peyote and San Pedro cacti, produces psychedelic effects often described as calmer and more euphoric. Visual distortions still occur, patterns move, colors intensify, sensory perception shifts. But mescaline is often associated with emotional openness, introspection, calmness, and long-lasting euphoria, rather than overwhelming intensity. The second major category is dissociatives. Dissociatives are drugs like ketamine, PCP, and DXM. Unlike psychedelics, dissociatives don't mainly alter visual perception or emotion. They mainly disrupt NMDA receptor signaling, producing detachment from the body, surroundings, emotions, and sometimes identity itself. One of the most well-known dissociatives is ketamine, originally developed as a medical anesthetic. At lower doses, ketamine can create dreamlike detachment. Movement slows, sound distorts, emotions flatten. Reality starts feeling distant or artificial. At higher doses, users can enter what's known as a K-hole, a state of extreme dissociation where movement, identity, and reality can feel completely disconnected. People describe floating outside the body, losing awareness of time, or feeling trapped inside abstract mental spaces they can't properly describe afterward. Some describe it as peaceful, others describe it as terrifying isolation. Then there's PCP, often considered one of the most unpredictable dissociatives to be widely used recreationally. At lower doses, it can create numbness, emotional detachment, distorted sound, and disconnection. But at higher doses, the experience can become chaotic, severe confusion, paranoia, and sometimes dangerous behavior. Pain perception can drop sharply, increasing the risk of accidental injury. Unlike psychedelics, which often intensify emotion, PCP can create a cold emotional emptiness combined with confusion and paranoia, and that combination is part of what makes it so risky. DXM, found in some cough medicines, can also become dissociative at high doses. At lower doses, it can feel like mild intoxication. But as the dose rises, the experience becomes dramatically stranger. Movement feels delayed and disconnected. Walking can feel robotic, like the brain is out of sync with the body. Vision turns foggy and dreamlike. Lights stretch and blur. Sound warps. At very high doses, people report powerful dissociation. Reality feels unreal. Emotions feel distant. Thoughts become fragmented, and some feel as if they're floating outside their body or trapped in a dream they can't fully wake up from. The final major category is deliriants. Deliriants are drugs like datura and high-dose Benadryl abuse. They mainly disrupt acetylcholine signaling, producing delirium, severe confusion, disorientation, and realistic hallucinations that can become indistinguishable from reality. One of the most infamous deliriants is datura. At high enough doses, it can cause terrifying hallucinations, severe confusion, and memory loss. People may be unable to separate hallucination from reality. They can wander into dangerous situations while disoriented, and afterward they may not remember large portions of what happened. Even diphenhydramine, the active ingredient in Benadryl, can cause deliriant effects when heavily abused. Unlike classic psychedelics, which are often described as emotionally meaningful, deliriants are commonly described as deeply unpleasant, isolating, confusing, and traumatic. And while some hallucinogens are being researched for possible medical uses, including depression, PTSD, and addiction, these substances can also carry major psychological and physical risks. Because hallucinogens don't just alter what people see, they can alter the entire feeling of reality itself.